What if I told you that your nonprofit is leaving thousands of potential donors on the table every single month? You've got the Google ad grant and you're driving traffic to your site, but you're just not seeing the donations roll in. The problem isn't your mission, it's almost certainly your strategy. In the next few minutes, I'm gonna show you exactly the recipe that we use to help turn ad clicks into real donations and the step in the middle that you're most likely missing. Let's talk about it. Well, hey guys, I'm Thomas Costello here from REACHRIGHT. We put out new content like this every week for nonprofits and for churches. And if this is something that you find helpful for your organization, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit that subscribe button. Now, I've personally helped over 200 nonprofits and churches get the Google ad grant. If you're new here and maybe you don't know what it is, Google gives a grant worth $10,000 every single month in free ads to nonprofits that have a 501c3 status. And this is a huge opportunity for most nonprofits. But what I have found is that so many nonprofits struggle turning those $10,000 into committed donors to their organization. Sometimes we're able to get lots of clicks onto our website, but people actually partnering with our organizations, well, that's a whole nother story. In helping all of these organizations, here is the most common problem that I encounter every single day. The reality is that nobody ever gets onto a nonprofit site that they've never heard of and makes a donation on that first visit. I don't care how good your site is or what great videos you have or how nicely it's designed, it's just not gonna happen. People need some time to become familiar with your nonprofit, and given the right strategy and the right stories being told, you can turn these people into regular donors and grow your nonprofit. But this is where so many organizations struggle. And let me tell you what the solution to this problem is. The solution is email. You need to have a better email strategy if you want to see results with the Google ad grant. Think of it like this. You go out on a first date with a girl or a guy and it's going really well and you're about an hour into it and they haven't even served the main course yet and that person asks you to marry them. Well, it's a little bit soon, right? Same thing on a nonprofit website. If someone gets on there for the first time and you tell a story for a few seconds and immediately you start asking for donations and partnership and these kinds of requests, well, chances are that's gonna push people away. Instead, you need to take some time and actually build relationship with these people. And the best way to do that is through a nurturing email sequence. So let me take you through the exact strategy that we use with most of our nonprofits to turn the $10,000 a month Google grant into real growth with people that partner with your organization. The first step in nurturing these relationships is you have to get the person's email address. And this can be easier said than done. People are actually pretty protective of their email information. Not as protective as they are of their credit card information and making donations, but in this day and age, so many people want to put you on their list. And so people will rarely volunteer their email address without a real incentive. So to that end, you need to build what we would generally call a lead magnet. Now, I know we're in the nonprofit space, or maybe you're part of a church and the idea of a lead magnet just sounds so salesy, but really what I mean is giving people an opportunity to give you their email address in exchange for some other kind of value. Think of it as like an ethical bribe. Maybe your nonprofit has created an ebook. This is the most common example that I see. A short ebook or a white paper that explains something that the potential partner might want to know more about. I saw an organization recently that had a short ebook. It was only about 30 pages. That was a deep dive into how to cultivate generosity in your children. And who doesn't want to learn about those kinds of things? We all want more generous kids. Lots of people responded to this free ebook offer and were willing to give their email address in order to download this ebook, and that was a mutually beneficial kind of a relationship. What that lead magnet is going to be for your organization, well, that's going to depend on the kind of organization that you are. I saw one church that ran spiritual gift assessments. If someone puts in their email address, they could go and take a 40-question quiz and get some kind of an idea on how God created them and some ideas on what their spiritual gifts may be. I don't know what it'll be for your specific organization, but you need to have some kind of incentive for someone to to give you their email address. And once you do, that's where the real magic starts. Once you receive that email address, you're gonna start what we call an indoctrination sequence. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, especially for some of our church friends here. Indoctrination just sounds so stern and it's not really what we want to do, but that's the term that we use in the marketing world. You might call it something more like a nurturing sequence, but the idea is you'll have a series of emails that go out to these people that just gave you their email information to help make them more familiar with what your nonprofit does. Talk about some of your most profound stories and the biggest points of impact that you've had in your area of expertise. Have you helped a homeless family get back up on their feet and get into permanent housing? Share those kinds of stories. Are you rescuing people out of slavery? Celebrate some of these kinds of things. Are you giving water to villages that have never had water before? Have videos and stories about the impact that you've made on individual lives. These are the kind of stories we want to be telling to people because they make maximum impact. You want to probably have a series of 5 to 8 emails that go out over the next couple of weeks to help someone really get comfortable. Another idea for these is you want to get them back onto your nonprofit website at some point. Maybe you have some other kind of value you can give them. Did you give them an ebook? Maybe you have another one that they would appreciate. Did you give them a quiz? Maybe some other kind of an asset would be helpful to them. Start to build goodwill by giving away a lot of what your nonprofit does, and you'll start to see some real traction in this area. And here's a pro tip: make sure you're using a professional email provider for this. I'm talking about something like Constant Contact or MailChimp. You don't want to just do this in your Gmail or your Outlook, because if you're getting a large volume of new requests, you'll start to get marked as a spammer, and then your other emails won't be going through. After you've sent 5 to 8 emails and maybe you've got them back onto your site, maybe you've had some more engaging opportunities with them, ask for response in some of those emails. Try to build relationship that way. Ask them to tell you a story about something that they've seen in their lives or why this would make an impact for you. The more relationship you can build with your potential donors, the more likely they are to partner with your organization. And then once you've gone through that, you'll probably have some kind of a weekly email correspondence that you want to do to keep people in touch with the things that are happening at your ministry. You should be producing new kinds of testimonials on at least a monthly basis, so sharing these kinds of stories can be really impactful. And once you have all of that set up and you have someone in the sequence, then and only then does it make sense to ask people to start to consider how they might partner with your organization. You want to just be really clear with it, give very clear calls to action, do it on the email, and give very clear buttons that show exactly what you want someone to do. We've found for most nonprofits, the best way to do this is by inviting people to make a recurring donation. I know as a business owner and also as an executive pastor at a church that when people give on a recurring basis, it makes an enormous impact on our bottom line because it's revenue that we can, to some degree at least, depend on. So asking people as the primary call to action to make a recurring gift, whether it be weekly or monthly, that usually has the most impact. There's a reason why so many nonprofits tie their donation to a specific dollar amount. We've all heard the account where someone might say something like, for less than the cost of 1 cup of coffee per week, you can make an impact on someone's life. Those kinds of things where it's tied to a quantifiable thing in their lives, it really helps people to get over that hump and be more likely to make some kind of a recurring donation. Once you have all that dialed in, it's time to start measuring, and that's really the last step. You want to make sure that you're seeing what works and what doesn't. We get really granular for our clients here at REACHRIGHT, and we measure things like verbiage on different landing pages and what gets more email addresses and what kind of verbiage works best in our emails. You tackle some of these kinds of questions and you're well on your way to seeing the best results and growing your nonprofit. In the real world, what does this look like? Well, if your nonprofit is spending $10,000 a month of Google's money, that might be turning into something like, let's call it 3,000 clicks a month of people getting onto your website. Now, if you're just asking those people directly to donate right when they get on your site, well, I would guess you'd probably get 0 on a great month. Maybe one of them will make a donation, and that would be really rare. Alternatively, if you don't jump the gun and do what we talked about with that ethical bribe of giving them some value for their email, I've seen some organizations get a 15 to 20% return on that. So let's say of those 3,000 people that clicked on your Google ads, let's say maybe 500 of them responded by giving you their email address. And that's just in 1 month. If you do that every single month for an entire year, that's 6,000 people on your nonprofit's email list. Now, is every one of them going to turn into a partner, a donor, or a regular giver? Well, absolutely not. But even if 10% of them do, that's 600 people that are partnering with your organization. If even 1% do, that's 60 people that are partnering with your organization. It really is a numbers game, and when you get these areas right, it can make an enormous impact. But maybe spending all $10,000 of the Google grant is where you're having a real struggle. Well, I actually made a whole video about how your nonprofit can spend not just some, but all $10,000 of the Google grant money. You need to watch this video next.